Wall Street is a Ponzi scheme. We don't need police. Pharmacists are just drug dealers in lab coats. Those dryer sheets are made with animal fat. Strawberry flavoring, a lot of it came from a beaver's anal gland.
We're joined by Lee Camp, who's releasing his first stand-up comedy special in 4 years titled Very Patriotic Super Uncle Sam Comedy Special, Not Allowed on American Television. Lee, welcome back to the show. You have this Facebook presence. What do you think of this latest purge? It's just out. It's sickening. We've become so politically correct that you almost can't be funny anymore. I mean, it's like we are a society of weenies is the best way I've heard it described. What's your take?
Well, yeah, it's, you know, the idea that people don't understand comedy or can't handle it is pretty upsetting. But this latest Facebook purge with the 800 pages that were torn down overnight by Facebook, and simultaneously many of the editors of those independent outlets were their Twitter accounts were suspended at the same time. So this is a joint effort by some of the largest social platforms in the world to silence independent media and sites like Anti-Media, Police the Police, Free Thought Project. These are very important outlets that have covered the stories that your corporate media will not dare get near. And it's just disgusting. And it really makes you wonder, what's the next step? I mean, if they're willing to just rip down these sites overnight, then there's no recourse. There's no one can get Facebook in front of them to tell them why they're doing it. But it seems pretty clear that it has to do with their partnership with many in our corporate government. The Atlantic Council is working with Facebook, and they're an offshoot of NATO and have board members like Henry Kissinger and General Petraeus. So I think we know where this is coming from. It's really a crushing of dissent.
Yeah, we're being dumbed down to a bunch of automatons. I don't know if you've seen this cartoon out there, Lee, but it nails it exactly. There's this ocean of heads. They're drawings of heads that look exactly alike. And the notion is this is the new progressive in America that's become so sterile in the way that they interact from the standpoint of politics. We must think alike. There can't be anything that's even a variation of that. And that's what Facebook has really jumped into here. In your new stand-up comedy special, you talk about the corporate takeover of our criminal justice system. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, I talk about how we're in a lot of ways living in an inverted moral, universe when it comes to our justice system. The fact that laws are being passed that forbid people from feeding the homeless. Laws are being passed against basically being homeless. Camping is now illegal, right? But it's not legal for our military to camp in Iraq and Germany and Djibouti and 183 countries around the world. That camping's fine. Or a corporation can destroy our futures with their oil, or, as you know well, Monsanto's chemicals can destroy our futures with that. But it's somehow illegal for a activist to try and stand up against that, to protest, to turn off an oil pipeline for 2 hours. Those cases are going through the courts right now with those climate activists. It really is an inverted moral universe.
Well, you're releasing this special, Lee, on your own site. It's leecampcomedyspecial.com. Why aren't you putting it out on one of the platforms that usually has comedy specials? Netflix, HBO. Your material is as good as anything out there, or better. What's going on with you releasing this on your own platform?
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. But, it's the same reason that you and I aren't on CNN at this very minute. The stuff I talk about and the stuff you talk about in your show is not allowed on the mainstream outlets. And so the main areas that usually have comedy specials are not going to carry the type of things I want to talk about. Ending the military-industrial complex and the wars around the world, ending our prison-industrial complex that is truly a crime against humanity, ending the stranglehold of big pharma. And you do such an effective job of fighting those things in the court system, but that is the type of topics that are not allowed on our mainstream airwaves.
Well, it's an interesting thing. Before McCain, interesting thing. If you want to read a real book about John McCain, read The Real McCain. That really tells you the story about who the man was before we created this myth about what an incredible person he was. But what McCain did before his death was added to this idea of censorship. He didn't want RT on the air in the United States. He didn't want some of the other foreign companies that come to the United States and actually produce news stories. So he put in the defense bill that people like Comcast could decide just to take us off the air if they chose. And why? Because there is a dumbing down of what Americans are able to hear. There's a dumbing down of what we're permitted to say. That's why MSNBC and CNN and all the major networks, if it doesn't involve hate talk about Trump or maybe what Kim Kardashian wore to the last Emmys, it doesn't sound like news anymore. Look, we're almost at the midterm elections. Do you talk about our election system in your comedy special?
Yeah, I cover the fact that it is ridiculous that we vote on black box machines that are owned by corporations. It's proprietary code. And this is the type of election rigging that is not really discussed, at least not nearly enough on your corporate media. You know, I mean, imagine... Mike, imagine if the last 5 minutes of the Super Bowl, they just turned off all the cameras and finished the game in the dark and then told the American people, hey, the Patriots won the Super Bowl. We would lose our minds. The streets would be on fire, all right? And yet instead, it's just our presidency and every election that is done in the dark, and we're supposed to be fine with it? I mean, if it were a Little League game, you'd see refs' heads on spikes.
Lee, I got to tell everybody this. I follow everything you do. This is a comedy special that you really shouldn't miss. Take the time, find it. It's something you're really going to like, and you ought to follow Lee Camp just all the time on his show. It's the kind of comedy that you won't hear on typical late night comedy shows. Lee, thank you for joining me. Okay.
Thank you, Mike.